So, after a whopping 13 years, The Walking Dead has finally wrapped up this lingering storyline that kicked off way back in season 2, and it's all thanks to The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon spinoff. Even though the franchise is pretty good at wrapping up its big stories with some sort of conclusion, there are just too many loose ends to tie up perfectly. Daryl Dixon's show really proves that not every storyline gets that clean cut ending. Sure, the show's focus is mostly on Daryl's journey across France and all the new friends he makes along the way, but then, bam, Carol shows up. Her arrival seriously changes the game since she's back to help out her longtime buddy. And honestly, seeing Carol finally reunite with Daryl is kind of everything for fans. But her journey wasn't exactly smooth sailing. She had to make some tough calls and tell a few lies along the way. One of those lies, though, dug up some heavy old trauma that she hadn't really confronted. All the way back in season 2, she faced a brutal loss. But instead of letting it break her, Carol powered through, turning into one of the franchise's most iconic survivors. Yet, as strong as she is, she never really dealt with that heartbreak. Now, more than a decade later, this spinoff finally pushes her to face that past, giving her some kind of closure to a storyline that's been left hanging for ages. Sophia's death was one of those moments in The Walking Dead that just sticks with you. It hit everyone hard, especially when she came out of Herschel's barn as a walker. That scene was the real wake up call for how dark and gritty the show would get. But while everyone was rocked by it, Carol felt it on a whole other level. Her kid was gone, and it was one of the most brutal ways possible, and naturally, she broke down. But the show didn't really spend much time exploring how that moment changed her. Now, finally, with Daryl's spinoff, she's getting that chance to process what happened. In one intense scene, Carol meets this pilot named Ash, and they start talking about family. After hearing about Ash's son, she ends up lying, saying Sophia is still out there somewhere, hoping it'll convince him to help her out. And though Ash hesitates at first, he eventually changes his mind, probably thinking he'd do anything too if he thought his own kid might still be alive. Her lie works, but it also drags all those buried memories of Sophia right back to the surface. It's a rough reminder that no matter what she's been through since, the pain of losing her daughter never really faded. Bringing back this storyline so many years later kind of proves there was always more left to explore with Sophia. Sure, season 2 was packed with drama, so maybe it didn't seem like the resolution was missing back then, but now, with Carol finally being honest about Sophia, it feels like the show is admitting they didn't quite do her story justice the first time around. And while Carol lying about Sophia definitely forces her to confront those memories, you have to wonder why it didn't come up sooner. She's lost other loved ones too, like Henry, who she and Ezekiel adopted. Losing him was another devastating blow, but because it happened during the Whisperer War, she didn't really have time to process it. She dove into battle mode instead of grieving, which probably helped her keep those painful memories buried even longer. Living in communities like Alexandria, the Kingdom, and the Commonwealth also gave her a sense of stability she didn't have before. Carol's line in Daryl Dixon about who came back shows how much these connections mattered to her. But the constant support from people like Ezekiel, Henry, and of course Daryl kept her from truly facing her past trauma. Now that she's out of her comfort zone and with Daryl, all those old feelings are starting to catch up with her. Daryl, meanwhile, has developed his father-son bond with Laurent throughout his journey. What started as a mission to help the kid in exchange for a way home quickly turned into something deeper. Daryl never calls Laurent his son outright, but he's constantly putting his life on the line for him, showing some real parental instincts. While Daryl is known for being loyal to his friends, his connection with Laurent feels different, almost like he's making up for something. It's hard not to see the parallel here. Daryl's drive to protect Laurent kind of mirrors Carol's regret over not being able to save Sophia. It's like he's making sure he doesn't repeat history. Carol still carries guilt for what happened to her daughter, so it feels like no coincidence that Daryl's over here risking everything for Laurent. If he can keep Laurent safe and bring him home, it's like he's getting a chance to do what Carol wishes she could have done for Sophia all those years ago. But anyway, y'all, I'll see you in the next one.